It happens to the best of us. Sometimes things just do not go as planned. So last week we worked on the cedar chest together. I taught you all about Woodubend. This trim roll was applied to the damaged sides of this cedar chest. And since then I have painted the front of it in one very thin coat of sawmill gravy. This is not a full coat. This is basically just to cover that gray tone of the bonding boss that I applied for an adhesion primer, and that is also there to block out any stains that might happen or tannins that might pull through on my wood. So today is going to be all about decoupage. Say it with me. Decoupage, decoupage. I really don't care how you say it, but it is a lot of fun. I get a lot of flack online for my Canadian accent, but it still works the same no matter how you say it, right? And I'm going to share with you my hack for getting some really great decoupage application on larger pieces of paper. All right? So let's begin. What are we going to do? Well, this thin coat right here of sawmill gravy is just a base to hide underneath this paper. This paper right here, if you look at the color tone, it's a rice paper. It has almost like a vintage duck egg, sort of a blue, mixed in with the sawmill gravy on the back. Now, this paper is called the Distressed Damask. It is very large. This is a premium decoupage paper. It is rice paper, so it is a little bit thicker. This size is, let's see, 23 by 33, which means it's really big. I'm going to open it up here and I'm going to show you how large this is actually. Pretty darn big. So the plan for this piece, this is not my chest. This is a custom order for a friend. I'm doing this for her. So she really wanted to put this paper onto this project. She's giving me full creative carte blanche to do whatever I want. She just knows that this paper needs to be on there because she's kind of basing her room around this kind of distressed, creamy, neutral feel. So this paper could go either way. It could go this way, right? Up and down. Or it could go side to side. It doesn't matter. It's all kind of like a personal perspective on what you like. But when I did that sawmill gravy underneath, it's going to just allow this color that's on the paper to really stay nice and true. My plan, I think, for this piece is to take this section. You can see that there's a raised lip right here where my finger is, to this section, cover this section in paper and possibly the sides of this section in paper as well, and then paint in the rest. I think I might even take some of this paper itself, ripping out some of the designs, just kind of like shadow it in on the corners a little bit, just to give it a little bit more visual interest. I'm not 100% sold yet, but this is where we're going to go today. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to apply our paper. So the first step for applying a paper is to come in and cut as close to the edge as possible. There is a white trim line around the paper itself, around the image, if that makes sense. So when they print these papers off at the factory, they have to have like a little tiny white border. So on this border, they have the name of the company, which is obviously Dixie Belle Paint, as well as the model number of the paper and the name of the paper. So I'm just going to cut this along the line. I see other people ripping it, which is totally okay. You can do that too. There's no rules. There's no rules in painting. You do it however you want to do it. And my thought process is to actually put it down and get it on here. Once it's on, I can come in with my knife or my piece of sandpaper and gently give it a rub, and then I'm going to have excess on the bottom. I was thinking in my head that I might take 2 of these and line them up, because you can kind of see this pattern right here. This one doesn't really match perfectly, but it's pretty darn close. I think what I'll end up doing is trying to find a way that I can get it like even closer for a match, which would probably be right around here. If I can get them to line up perfectly, I will. If I can't, that's okay. It's distressed enough that I'm not too worried about it lining up exactly perfect. I also have a plan to put a really large Woodubend on the front here. This is a huge Woodubend that's going to be painted gold and go right on the front. So you're not actually going to see the seam where they join together very much at all. So I'm not terribly concerned about having it line up exactly perfect. It just needs to be kind of close enough, if you catch my drift. So let's talk about how we can do this. So I can take this paper right here and kind of like score it to know where it's going to be cut. So I could just like kind of bend it if you want. I mean, I can. I'm not going to really do anything. Let's cut it while we have it here so that I'm not working with the excess. So I'm just going to fold this little paper and cut along this seam. Let me make sure I actually don't have it exactly lined up. I want to make sure I have enough to get over the top of the edge. Seat of your pants, people. Fly by the seat of your pants. That's how we do it around here. Because who's got time for measuring things? You know how many times I put stuff down and I think, honestly, it would have taken you 5 seconds, Melissa, to just measure that. But oh no, you had to hurry. When you hurry, sometimes things happen, but this is okay. We have a lot of this paper, so I'm just going to come in and actually cut along that kind of scored line. And then we're going to put this paper on. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to apply a paper of this size. It's not going to be very long live today, but it is going to be something where you might learn something you haven't before. Okay, that's a little bit more manageable. I'm going to go a little higher than I need to because you see this white line right here? If I were to get out a ruler and even cut this perfectly straight, I'm going to tell you something, it never freaking lines up. It never lines up. So I'm better off going over the edge, waiting for my paper to be dry because I'm going to be using clear coat to apply it to the piece, and then sanding back the edge with paper to get an exact markup of where we want it to go. All right, let's do this. Let's do it. I'm going to back it up. What are the tools you need to apply a decoupage paper? This isn't hard. Anybody can do this. I used to be terrified of paper. I don't know why, because now I do it so often that it's like, oh, paper again. But you're going to need a spray misting bottle filled with water. Should I fill this up before I started? Probably. You're going to need a brush. It doesn't matter what style of brush you need or you're going to use because you're only using it to really apply the medium to this piece of furniture to stick on. You're going to choose your application medium. This is what I like to use. Satin Clear Coat by Dixie Belle has just enough grab to it, and it's really easy to work with because it's water-based. Sometimes if you've used Mod Podge before or a different medium, you might find it gets really sticky. And if you put your paper down and you want to pull it back because you made a mistake or you want to move it around, you're going to run into some issues. So I like to use Clear Coat in satin. And you're going to obviously need your scissors. And here's your magic tool, which is your saran wrap. This is a giant roll that I've had for a long time. It doesn't matter what brand. Why saran wrap? Because when you put this paper down onto your project, if you were to take your brush and start pushing this medium on top, you take the chance of this printed on decoupage paper losing a little bit of its color. Some of this paper, like if you were using a very dark paper, I'm just going to have an example close by. Because you know I usually have things on the floor. If you have a very dark decoupage paper, like say a brown or a black, and you come in and you start mashing it with your brush, I guarantee that pigment's going to move because it's printed on top of one side of the paper. You can see that this is the back, this is the front. So if you take a piece of saran wrap or plastic wrap, whatever you like to call it, and smooth out, you're not going to remove the finish from your paper. It's going to stay where it lives, and you're going to be able to get out all of the wrinkles, which is this one little handy dandy tool. All right, so first steps first. You're going to take your brush and you're going to apply your Dixie Belle's Clear Coat over top of your painted surface. You don't need to be perfect because you're actually just going to be sticking the paper right on top here, okay? You're just putting the Clear Coat medium down over top of my haphazardly painted sawmill gravy. It doesn't have to be even a great painted surface. I actually do apply paper on top of Boss a lot because if it's light and it's light, it just makes the paper stand out a bit more. If you're gonna go really dark underneath here, you're gonna see the darkness underneath the light part of the paper, okay? So I know that I want the paper to go this way, okay? Actually, I want it to go this way. So going this way and pushing it down, first things first, you're going to spray the back of your paper with water. Now, the reason you're spraying your paper with water is to get it to be able to move. This paper is rice paper, and when you spray it with water, it becomes just a little bit stretchy, right? It's like a little bit stretchy. So say I put it on like this and go, oh no, my paper. You're not trapped. Look, you can pick it up. If you didn't spray the back of the paper, you would have a harder time removing it. I'm also not going to cut around this until after I get the paper on. So I'm going to gently line up where I want my paper to sit. See how it's grabbing by itself already? You really don't even have to work that hard. Take my little paper, my little saran wrap, and from the middle, I'm going to start to smooth out my wrinkles because I don't want wrinkles. You're gonna see little fibers, that's normal, but I don't want big wrinkles on my paper. Now, remember this little lock up here? I'm going to just cut straight down from the top of this paper to give it a little bit of movement so that I can kind of come in around it later and push it flat, if that makes sense. Smoothing, pushing out those wrinkles, getting a nice flat surface. Now, this part is okay. The fact that this isn't like 100% perfect on the edge, because I'm going to come up here when this gets dry, take my sanding block and sand it so that it releases this little edge perfectly on the corner. And then all I have to do is line up the second sheet and move it along. I don't even know if I'm gonna do the second sheet yet until I'm for sure got this first sheet down and it's gonna live where it's gonna live. What do you think of that paper? That's really pretty, right? That's a really pretty paper. It comes out much more creamier than you would think, but right now this is also wet. When this dries, it's gonna lighten back up and you're not gonna see that kind of darkness that you're looking at right now. I'm also going to be taking the paint color that matches this the best. I have a couple of different shades up here, Sawmill Gravy. I grabbed some olive wood. What else do I have over here? Some gardenia, and I'm gonna be really stippling the paint onto this piece and probably even pulling the paint down into some of these areas to really make sure that it matches well, right? So right now I'm looking at my paper going, wow, this looks great. There's no wrinkles. It's looking like perfect. I just need to wait for it to get dry. Once it's dry, I'm able to remove the excess from the edges, match up my corners, and continue along. I still haven't decided how I'm gonna paint the rest of the sides or if I'm gonna do this across the top. I have more than enough paper. I'm just waiting for inspiration to hit and it hasn't hit me yet. I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe because it's like a lighter color that I'm not used to using. I'm not really sure. But for some reason, I haven't decided what 100% to do with this piece yet.
So to make a long story even longer, I ended up taking all of this paper off. I tried multiple different looks, but I just was not happy with the way that it went. So out came my Surf Prep sander and I removed all of the paper along with some of that primer, which left me with this hot mess express. I ended up having to come back in with some mud, fix some repairs, and I just redid the Boss 2 even coats for a brand new fresh start. So now you know, some things just don't go as planned, and that's a-okay. I did stick with the original plan of using this Woodubend molding on the front. I had originally painted it gold, but I ended up painting over top of all of this. So what did I do and how did I fix this lumpy, bumpy mess? Well, I ended up using Terra Clay Paint because if you know me, you know that I love some texture and I love Terra Clay Paint. So I started out with a nice base coat to even everything out and then started stippling on my color. There's 18 shades of Terra Clay Paint, but I like to stick with colors that are in the same color family. So I started out with some wheat, moved into moonbeam, some desert tan, mixing them all together and tapping them with a natural fiber brush. Creating all these little peaks and valleys that are going to hide any of the little marks or uneven surfaces that might be underneath this paint. Painting right over top of that gold Woodubend to blend it into the piece. And then repeating the same process, kind of darker on the edges into a lighter middle on the entire project. And FYI, I did okay all of this with the client. This is a custom project and she did bring me that paper. I just could not make myself live with it. I was not happy with the way that it was turning out. So in lieu of that paper with the distressed damask, I'll be adding a stencil. This is a Mylar stencil from Dixie Belle, and its its width is kind of thick. So when you're building up your paint to create a raised stencil, this is a really great one to do it with. So I will use the same chip brushes to come in and add similar colors to what's on the piece, but mostly Moonbeam, which is the white color from the Terra Clay Paint line. This is just going to build up another level, another layer onto this piece, blending in different colors from the same base coats to kind of create a faded pattern on top of this project. So once you are done adding in all of your texture with your stencils, you can choose to seal your piece with either Terra Matte or Terra Tough or an oil-based wax. Dixie Belle does not make an oil-based wax for Terra Clay Paint, but I do like to use a oil-based wax on top of this paint. I wanted to add a little shadowing and some color to this piece, so I used Dixie Dirt. My Dixie Dirt was mixed with my Easy Peasy spray wax and pushed into all of the detail. So at the end of the day, you win some, you lose some. I did lose about 2 weeks of time that I put into this piece because it really just sat in my studio for an extended time period waiting for me to do something with it, and I just was not feeling that paper. Overall, I'm now happy with this new look, and the client is too. I hope that you had fun hanging out with me in my furniture flipping disaster that turned into a beautiful piece of art. I love this piece. I love the texture and the Woodubend on the front and the touches of gold gilding that I added around all the corners. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.